Starting off with a motion comic, something we've never done before, was kind of interesting because we didn't have a process, we didn't have any past precedent on how to do it.
I wish I could do something more.
Then wish me luck.
I'm Veronica Pescerianu. I was the producer on the Halo Waypoint motion comics, The Return and Midnight in the Heart of Midlothian. Working on Midlothian, the main thing was just to make sure we communicate the creative vision and just creating an environment where Juan can feel like he can interpret it and Frank can feel like his vision is fairly and accurately represented, and just making sure that they're always on the same page.
Security clearance, robot. Passcode, Asimov.
I'm Frank O'Connor. I'm Franchise Development Director for 343 Industries, and I handle a lot of the fiction and ancillary stuff that we do in the Halo universe, as well as much more direct involvement on our main projects. The reason we chose Midnight in the Heart of Midlothian as the first motion comic adaptation from Evolutions was really simple. It was the simplest story. It's actually very straightforward, only has one location. Secondly, it was my story, and I'm less likely to be precious and possessive. And we were definitely going down an experimental path with this one, and didn't want to risk one of the fancier or more elaborate stories on a first pass. And of course, everything worked out beautifully, so I think people were much more open to this after that first experiment.
Once you leave the med bay, you're on your own. I'm trapped here, dumb and useless, till they reconnect my systems, and I don't see any reason why they're going to do that.
I think I had a lot of it pretty well envisioned. I mean, when I'm writing, I'm pretty much sort of putting myself in those places and spaces, and you know, some of those memories come from real life experiences, and some of them come from movies that you've seen and so on. That one was definitely the inside of a submarine or a ship, both of which I've been on, and those were definitely the colors and the sounds and even the smells that I was thinking about when I was writing the story. I think that the process for Midlothian's transformation in a motion comic, which was much simpler than the subsequent one, the one after is The Return, Kevin Grace's story, which was a much more complicated process of adaptation. Ours is very direct, very linear, and very literal. I mean, it follows the events of the story, it recreates them in motion comic form, very literally. I mean, it's almost scene by scene. It gets more complicated when you look at something like The Return, where you have a need for a built-in narrator rather than just description, because there's only so much you can do to describe feeling and emotion, for example, with visuals, and we had to add a narrator to that one.
My name's Christopher Melroth. I'm an audio director here in Microsoft Game Studios. I work with a lot of internal and external teams, and one of the roles that I play with the Waypoint team is I'm the audio supervisor for a lot of the Saturday night content. I was the audio supervisor for both Midnight in the Heart of Midlothian and for The Return. We took very different paths for each one. The first one we produced internally. To convey the feeling of Midlothian, when you read the script, it becomes very apparent. It's a tension-filled piece with a tough guy and sort of a cynical sidekick.
Perhaps you're just a throwback, Baird. It would explain that Cro-Magnon brow of yours.
Moye was extremely difficult to cast. The character description for Moye is that she's an elderly Chinese woman with a smoker's cough and a coughing, like a sort of a raspy laugh. So when we cast Moye, we were looking for someone who could convey that sense of sarcasm and that sort of like edgy sense of humor that would really contrast nicely.
Baird, wait!
It's very clear that Baird is a strong, ODST.
Well, my high school nickname was Captain Caveman, you know.
With incredible physical prowess and some bravado and a dark sense of humor.
Well, you stupid asshole. Think you can do it right this time?
Not unlike Frank himself.
You know, one of our biggest creative challenges for The Return was Midlothian is so action-packed, right? You have this giant ODST who just kicks everyone's butt, and it's awesome to watch. But The Return is much more introspective. You know, it's a really solemn story, and and to keep that sort of creative punch going that our fans really love, and also staying true to the kind of reverence of the story was an interesting creative challenge. And Kevin's been really, really great, you know, in letting Juan sort of chop up his story a little bit and interpret it.
There.
So my name's Kevin Grace. I am the managing editor for 343 Industries. It means I work on all the franchise stories, on the books and the novels and game stuff, and kind of everywhere there's Halo story going on, I'm playing with it. The Return is a story that I wrote for Halo Evolutions, the short story anthology we published towards the end of last year, and I was very lucky to have a chance to write a story as well as serve as the editor for the rest of the stories in there, with flair editors from Tor Books and other folks in the studio. But that was my first chance to really create my own kind of piece of the Halo universe and put something out there that hopefully fans have enjoyed.
So my fleet drew lines of fire across the rest of this world as a lesson for those who dared stand before the might of the Covenant.
I've always really enjoyed a little bit of the politics of Halo, kind of the fact that it's got such a complicated story for, you know, a game about running around, blowing things up, and saving the universe. There's a lot of backstory there, and in particular the politics inside the Covenant. I mean, the story, bad guy is really important to have a really good story, and the Covenant is a great bad guy. It's a complicated bad guy. It's got lots of different species. It's got lots of different plots going on, lots of different really interesting characters. And so I wanted to kind of try my hand at extending their story a little bit to see what happens to the Covenant after the end of Halo 3, which is when my story takes place, is about 5-6 years after the events of Halo 3. Now that the war against the humans is over, the Covenant is broken up, and try to chase down specifically what happened to the elites, the Sangheili, and what they're going to do with themselves now that the Covenant is gone, and they need to find kind of a new reason to do their thing.
Not all were strong enough to serve our gods, but I was.
So, I mean, obviously when I wrote the story, the idea of the motion comics hadn't come up yet at all, so I was able to focus on just one elite on a planet all by himself, and frankly, a lot of the story is pretty internal in terms of what he's going through, what he's kind of agonizing over as he walks across this world. And so translating that to a motion comic originally seemed like that was a bit of an interesting idea, because so much of it was internal, but we had one of our resident artists who did kind of an early concept shot of what the complete internal version of the story would be, and luckily Juan was able to bring the action way up from that original plan or that original idea of just one sad elite kind of walking around by himself, and he's used the flashback sequences in the story really, really well, and has been able to pull in, frankly, a lot more of the human suffering that this shipmaster caused in his part in the war than I had originally planned, or kind of even had originally hoped. So he's made the story better, frankly, through the motion comic, by seeing what the shipmaster is remembering, his visions from the war, his memories of what he's done. By bringing those all in for the motion comic, it added the action that we needed to keep it interesting, but it really put another layer on the story that I've really enjoyed, and I hope everybody else likes too.
On the second one, we partnered with some great friends of ours down in San Francisco called Pure Mind, and they did original score. They're doing all the sound design down in their studio.
I know that sound.
We really wanted the pieces of music that we did to be akin to everything in the Halo universe, and we wanted to make sure that even though we weren't quoting specific themes or passages, we wanted it to live in the same family. And one wonderful thing about working on a piece like this is that it's so emotionally rich and deep, and you can only hope to be working on a project where the story and the emotional content of the project is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to the Halo universe, is the amount of emotional space that can be explored, and the depth to the story. Kevin's writing is so evocative, and the story itself is such an evocative story. So when we're dealing with these deeper themes like regret and in some ways redemption and transformation in a sense, we just sat down and we were like, wow, we're going to do all of that, but we're going to do it in the context of this incredibly established universe.
One of my favorite moments in The Return is when the elite ship glasses the planet, when they carve their religious symbol in the planet.
In a trance-like state, I guided the plasma bombardment that seared our holy glyph for the word faith into the surface of the planet below.
Making the sound effect for that was very challenging. It had to be the sound of air ripping and tearing in a place, of course, where there is no air, which is space. So that's one of those things we just sort of have to work with.
And you know what we must do in the face of such betrayal. Our war against these deceivers starts now.
One of my unique approaches is that I'm really just trying to please myself when I make this. I'm not thinking, will other people think this sounds cool? I try to make it so that I think it sounds cool. So where I say to myself, wow, I think that's really cool, and that's what I would want to hear if I was an audience.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It made a great ring. Yeah.
One of the things we decided to do was call Irina our vocalist, and we wanted to get the wailing sound of the planet, the sound of the humans dying, the sounds of the ghosts, the sounds, an overarching sound, and we thought that Irina did a fantastic job helping us add that color to our score, and that was something that we were really happy to do.
She was a wonderful compass. I mean, because we had established sort of a harmonic bass at that point, and we brought her into the studio, and Irina Mikhailova is she's got this, she does all kinds of different styles, but that sort of classic, like, Bulgarian or Ukrainian calling out, this sorrowful, beautiful voice, really kind of like, when you laid that on top of what we did, just light bulbs were going off over our head.
I think for me the biggest challenge was finding enough time to play the game while we were working on it, since as Paul said, we're such huge fans of this, trying to be the keepers of the flame a little bit, taking these assets and moving forward with them. But it was a great adventure. It was a lot of fun, and it's a blast to work on something like Halo.
Yeah.
This world is dead because of me. And now I need this world to tell me how to live.
So a lot of people have asked me what's next for the Shipmaster. This story was all about his longing for a reason to live, and his questions about what he and his people should do, and his realization that he didn't have to wait to be told that he didn't need somebody like the prophets or somebody like his clan elders to tell him what he was supposed to do, that he could just do it himself, is a huge revelation for him. It's something that, I mean, he really didn't have, that he wasn't trained to believe in himself, and the ability to set his own destiny in all of his life and in thousands of years for his people. So him coming to that realization for me was a really good ending for him, again, for this part of the story. Now where he goes from there is an interesting question, and one that I would love to explore later on.
Faith. What do these humans have?
One of the biggest blessings on this project has been actually getting to work with Juan. He is amazingly driven and very detail-oriented and very, very committed to quality, and that was evident right off the bat. Just immediately he sent me a giant email with tons and tons of questions on how do we do this, what does this look like, I need this, and just how committed he is to the success of this project is really amazing. Like, his work ethic just, it puts me to shame sometimes, just how driven he is to deliver, a great product that everyone is happy with. And his artistic vision is amazing, especially in a medium that we've never really tried before. Motion comics are new for Halo and new for Halo Waypoint. And we had a little bit of trepidation of going into it thinking, what is this going to be like? But he was immediately able to apply the skills that he already had to this franchise and meet, frankly, the high expectations we had of getting the story out there.
Pues la primera vez que se pusieron en contacto conmigo, de 343 y me preguntaron si estaba interesado en hacer algo de animación relacionado con el universo de Halo. Pues yo realmente me quedé un poco impactado y les dije inmediatamente, sin pensármelo dos veces, yo, claro que sí, por supuesto. Una de las cosas que ha sido sorprendente en esta colaboración, pues, es que nunca se ha sentido la sensación de distancia. La forma en que todo el proceso ha sido seguido y la comunicación que hay entre yo y el equipo, pues da una sensación de cercanía y eso realmente es importante para este tipo de trabajo.
Passcode accepted. Self-destruct sequence initiated. 4 minutes and counting. I'm kidding. There's no need for countdown whatsoever.
I think we've been really lucky with the motion comics so far, and that they play on the breadth of the Halo universe and on all the different stories. I mean, we've got stories out there in words in novels and static images in comic books. We've got anime, we've got obviously lots of awesome games with beautiful images, but the wealth of stories that we have in Halo suits itself very well for lots of different kinds of storytelling. And so motion comics is kind of a new thing that we've been doing lately to try to tell some of the stories from Evolutions, but it's turned out to be something that fans have enjoyed and is a really good way for us to kind of put some visuals on some of the really text-heavy stories that we've got out there. You know, I don't know what other new ways we'll try to find to tell some of these stories. Obviously, we're looking for anything that's possible and that fans will enjoy. But I hope that we do more of these motion comics because it's been a great experience.